Dead Rock Chapter 26 is here and officially out. First off, sorry that I didn't cover this chapter as it released. I was away on vacation, so a lot of the stuff that was coming out while I was away, I missed. Sorry about that. Man, there was a lot of stuff that came out last week especially that I missed, so yeah, I'm catching up right now. But yeah, this chapter of Dead Rock was another good one. As you remember the last chapter, Yakuto died, and it seems like Frey was being set up to be the new MC for the series for the time being. And Mashima just left us off with a massive shock in the turn of the story. So there's a lot to go into and a lot to figure out. And this chapter really is incredibly interesting and gives us an idea of what to expect for the future and a path towards potentially defeating God, and maybe even teasing the return of Yakuto in some way, shape, or form, but we'll get to that as we get into the chapter. Before anything else, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more, and it keeps me motivated to keep making these Dead Rock reviews every single month. Now then, on to the chapter. Chapter 26 of Dead Rock, titled Faith. And the cover image is of a old ancient drawing of God surrounded by people worshipping him, as well as other things in the background, as this does tie into the revelations of this chapter about God. Now we start this chapter off back at Dead Rock in Class 1F, as we get introduced to 1F's new teacher. It is my sensei. And her root is Bigfoot. She is literally an actual living foot, a sentient foot. And I feel like Mashima just wanted to troll people with this one, and I guess he would think it was funny. I don't know how to feel about this. But, yeah, this was just an interesting interaction with everybody learning about the new teacher. And, yeah, she also says that if any one of you are rude, I'll make you stink. And apparently her power is to emanate a strong odor that brings you to tears and makes you want to vomit. Yeah, this is definitely two things. One, a joke about feet being smelly, and two, potentially another way for Mashima to just show his foot fetish in a weird way. Yeah, not much to say about my sensei outside that she has a foot and she stinks. That's pretty much it. But she then asks for Frey as they're beginning attendance, as we then get Frey entering the classroom with her new look, as she has cut her hair, and she's looking pretty good. She's actually pulling off the shorter hair look, and I kind of like it. Not much else changed with her design. Obviously, they're wearing the uniforms and all that, but I kind of like the shorter hair. Also, her older sister had shorter hair, so it could also be seen to pay homage to her older sister with everything that happened. Plus, she avenged her sister and all that. And everyone reacts to Frey's cut hair, as Mikoto actually says that it looks great on her, and Frey says thank you, but also tells everybody that she's okay. And so we cut to a bit later after class, as the rest of Class F just begin to talk, as obviously it went from 7 to now 5 members of this group. She says that cutting her hair is a symbol of determination for her to kill God and avenge Yakuto. And she thinks that the cutting short hair in terms of determination is a trope in anime. Obviously, the biggest example of this is Sakura during the Chunin exams, the Four is the Death portion, when she cut off her hair as a sign of determination and resolve and stuff like that. So Mashima's doing this with Frey at the moment, which, okay, makes sense, and I am starting to like this newer design. But Frey ends up saying that she's not just going to avenge Yakuto. God thinks he can take people's lives whenever he wants, like it's nothing, and he's got to pay for it. As Mikoto says yes, and she says it's about time that she told them the truth about her, revealing that she's a member of Ghost, the secret police force agency of the demon world, and that she originally came to find proof of Baltagar's misdeeds. And since God is the one behind Baltagar, God also needs to be put under an investigation, which shocks Zelisha and Hani, as they are public order in the demon world. So Mikoto gives resolve to beat God as well. And Zelisha obviously just reveals that she came to Dead Rock in the first place to take down God anyway, and she also wants to avenge Yakuto as well. Frey then asks Ryzen if he's in, and he pauses for a moment. but he says his goal was to graduate from Dead Rock and become a demon ruler. But we then flash back to the general that he met a couple chapters ago from his past. But he says that now that he's here, he has a new goal, saying that since Hannibal is here, the man who destroyed his country and killed the princess that he was meant to protect, he has more of a reason to stay in Dead Rock. And since he looks like he's going to be a teacher here at Dead Rock, and he wonders if they mind him taking him out too, and that he will fight and kill God alongside the rest of their class. And then finally it comes down to Hani, as Hani says he wants to avenge Yakuto too, and all the teachers here are just totally sus, just like that foot girl. Of course, tension has to be beat by Hani just saying something ridiculous at the end of the sentence. But yeah, all their hearts are united, but Hani brings up the fact, how are they even going to beat God? As everybody pauses for a moment, as then Hani begins to break down crying, saying that he killed Yakuto in a single second, and that they don't have any idea how to possibly beat him. As Frey says, we won't know until we try, but Hani brings up, yeah, Yakuto tried and look what happened to him. But after a few seconds and a bit of close-up panels for Zelisha, she's like, oh right! I remember the day Yakuto died? Yeah, I met up with Magu Magi, the sealing expert wizard that they left the God book weakness thing to unseal. So, yeah, she came to the school the day Yakuto died, obviously with all the emotions going on in the sense of loss. Apparently, she also broke the seal on the book. We saw this a couple of chapters ago as well, as we saw her reaction at the end of a chapter, where she finally learned what God's weakness is. Zelisha then used her magic to reveal the book that holds God's weakness, saying that Magu Magi said to open it when everybody is around, and so she was waiting for Frey to come to class. Though I do like how literally it seems like Zelisha just forgot with everything going on up until everybody was saying, we're all going to kill God together. I kind of like that. That's kind of funny. But yeah, we got the reveal of the God Root book, and now they're about to look inside to find what God's weakness is, to take him down and avenge Yakuto. But it's then we transition to a kingdom in the human world, as God appears in front of two soldiers, saying that this king has 3 daughters, telling these guards that he's God. And the king then comes in and brings him into the palace, apologizing for the insubordination and disrespect of his soldiers, as God sits down on this king's throne, much to the disapproval of his soldiers and devout followers. Although God is asking for the king to bring his daughters to him, it's fine, and tells the king to sit back on his throne, as he looks over to one of the soldiers intimidating him, saying, lacking in faith, huh? Seems I'm not quite worthy of everyone's worship yet. As we then get the reveal of this king's 3 beautiful daughters, as we then get to see God looking at them, saying that these are the famed daughters. And could you princesses remove your clothing before your people? As the king is confused by this, God just blows some air, and all of a sudden, we got some Mashima fan service type thing, as the clothes of the 3 princesses begin to explode and disintegrate, as 2 of the princesses try to cover up in shame and embarrassment. The king asks God to have mercy on his daughters, as they're still innocent and yet to be wed. Such shame cannot be borne. But one of the princesses is not fazed by what just happened, as she is the only one standing. As God says, have you no shame? As the woman says, defying your command would be the true source of shame, Almighty God. As he asks for her name, it's revealed that her name is Muse. And God asks, if you had to choose between me and this country, which would you pick? But Muse answers says that the answer is obvious. Faith is what forms me. As she chooses God, and in that instance catching God's attention, in the blink of an eye, her sisters, her father, the soldiers all begin to explode in blood, as a massive shockwave appears, destroying the kingdom and the country. As in multiple pages we see that God has wiped out this entire kingdom, as in a 2-page spread that it is now nothing but a barren mountain, and nothing remains of this kingdom. As God looks towards Muse, saying, would you still choose me after all this? As Muse says, of course. If it be your divine judgment, then the king, my sisters, my people, and my country must not have been needed. As it's then that God erupts in light, saying, such piety, yes, this is it. This is my power, my source. As he says, I'll kill you now. As the Muse says, I will happily offer my life to you if you guide me to do so. As God just screams in ecstasy, essentially, saying, no way, no way, as he goes down on his knees and goes down to the ground with tears in his eyes, with a narration, as it says, God prostrated himself before the weak human girl. God, the ruler of the world, shed tears in the face of her deep faith. From the bottom of his heart he felt relieved and full of joy and excitement. Those emotions brought about miraculous droplets to his eyes. As he offers Muse to come to paradise. As she agrees, God basically just makes her his 37,191st wife. And yeah, she goes along with him. As we cut back to Class 1F, as they learn that the weakness to God is faith. Now before I dive more into the rest of the chapter, I kind of liked seeing a bit of the human world, as it shows that it seems that God goes to different kingdoms, to kings, to kind of instill fear in them, and also show his power, in order for them to have faith in him, so that they could potentially just make him stronger. Faith in him is what makes him stronger. That's what his power is derived from, and that is very interesting. A faith-based power boost is insane, because usually stuff like that is for the main character. You know, like power, friendship, or belief in giving power to the MC of a story. This aspect of powering up is now given to the villain, and it kind of makes sense since he is portrayed as the god of this world, for his power to be based off faith. So that is very interesting, and I like the extremes this went to the point where the king had a daughter so devout to God after just meeting him right now once, and killing everyone she knows and loves with no reaction, because I guess that's how the king raised her. That is just absolutely insane. And yeah, just to showcase that he does this very often, apparently, just to, you know, gain faith from those that are truly, like, in awe of his greatness, and just still wipes people out for just chicks and giggles, seemingly. But back to the chapter. Class F is wondering how to get rid of faith in God, as Mikoto brings up the human world, as it says that it has to be the faith of the human world. So they need to get rid of the faith in God by the humans there. But Zalisha says that she doubts people can lose faith in a God they believe in. As Hani says, yeah, religion sucks people in deep. No matter how bad one is, it's hard for people to get out of it once they're believers. But Frey actually brings up an interesting point. As it says there in the book, there's a bunch of religions in the human world, and they have different origins, and each worship their own gods. The principle is worshipped in about 2/3 of the world. And so, if he has 2/3 of the world's power, that means the faith of the other third does not believe in God. It doesn't have that power, which is a really good observation by Frey, if we go off that information of the book. And Ryzen says, never thought of it before, but are there a bunch of gods out there? Which Alicia says, maybe some of them even hate ours, with Frey still pondering everything that they've learned. As she ends up saying, no matter how small a chance is, we gotta take it. Declaring to the rest of the class to go to the human world, much to their surprise. Now this is definitely very interesting, because we didn't know if we were going to go to the human world at all, but it was stated in the beginning of the story that outside of the multiple layers of the demon world, there was the demon world, the human world, and the celestial world. So we had 3 different worlds that we could potentially explore if needed. But this does give us a nice pathway to the future. We could explore the human world and see how, you know, these roots that they have their power from can impact them, as many of these roots, legends, deities, myths, etc., originate from the human world, and that could actually be an interesting way to introduce origins of these characters in the world as well, but also give them a good way to fight God by basically trying to destroy faith in, at the very least, this God. So that is very interesting. Also, when this was revealed, with the fact that there's a human world with multiple different religions and stuff like that, people online began to theorize. Maybe this is Mashima's way of having a crossover into Fairy Tail. Now, ever since the beginning of Dead Rock, with the allusions to acnologia with Yakuto, and with Zelisha being Zeref, since she's a black wizard, and even like a quick tease of like a fire user against a black dragon in an old story and all that stuff. There are teases and references to Fairy Tail, and while Mashima's never had them cross over in an official capacity outside of that one time with Mashima's Heroes or even Fairy Tail OVAs when it came to Fairy Tail and Rave Master, Dead Rock has the highest chance, as it takes place in an entirely different world, and right here, right now, if they do go to the human world, the idea of there being multiple gods, 2/3 of the world's faith being in this god, I wouldn't be opposed if Mashima made a mainline work of his crossover and make it a canon storyline and team up in the main with another main story. It is interesting to think about, and I would like it if Fairy Tail was that was the series that was crossed over, and if we actually go into the world of Fairy Tail and have them get introduced to the Dead Rock cast, for all we know. It's possible, very, very low in chances, but I wouldn't mind. Heck, for all we know, he could also do this and bring back Rave Master, for all we know. He could do that as well, because there's no telling which world it'll be. It'd be cool if it was Rave Master, but who knows. But yeah, we're going to the human world. We don't know how yet, but we have an idea of God's weakness and a pathway to get to that weakness. How long that will take, I'm not sure. So we'll just have to wait and see. But the chapter's not over yet, as we transition to a random area with trees made up of rocks and areas of spider webs and skeletons all over the place with a river. And as we get a 2-page spread of this general area, we see these little white ghost things, from what I can tell, carrying a coffin, with the final page being Yakuto in the coffin with flowers surrounding him, ending the chapter. Now this last one alludes to what I said at the beginning of the video of the potential of Yakuto returning. Now, I don't think this is going to be how Yakuto returns, but the fact that his body is in this bizarre world with these creatures putting him in a casket and putting flowers there, this seems to be a type of funeral procession, having his soul go on to the next world, for all we know. Now, what I would like from this point onward would be interesting. This is my thing that I kind of hope would happen. This could be an introduction to someone who has the root of death and is the one responsible, or maybe even this is going to be death themselves, who is responsible for shepherding characters into the next life. I mean, we have a river, there's skulls. This could be like the Demon World's version of the river Styx, like in Greek mythology. That'd be pretty interesting. But what if Yakuto is awake and confronts this other character that we'll probably get introduced to, and they decide if he wants to have a second chance, if he wants to go back and try and take down God, and maybe this character has a grudge against God, they have to test Yakuto. And we can have one section of the story focused on Yakuto trying to get a second chance, while the other half of the story, which I kind of want to be the main thing for us to follow for a good while, would be Frey as the MC trying to get to the human world and trying to destroy faith in God with the humans in order to weaken God so they can have a chance to beat him. That's where I kind of hope the story goes from this point onward, especially if we have the revival of Yakuto, with how I think it could go. But that's something to think about for another time. What did you guys think of this chapter? I really loved it. I like the reveals. I like what we got. I like Frey taking charge and coming up with plans to try and take down God. And I like the tease of Yakuto at the end, even though it's only been one chapter from his death. But that's a whole other thing. Leave your thoughts, opinions, and theories in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Now with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.